Welcome to The Explainer, where we break down big ideas using the source material. And today, oh boy, do we have a big one. We're looking at a single research paper that claims to have a theory connecting Olympic sports to, well, the entire universe. So, what could an Olympic sport, ancient languages, and quantum physics possibly have in common? Well, according to this fascinating and, let's be honest, incredibly ambitious research paper, they're all connected. It proposes a single model called the Philfo model, which is supposed to be a universal blueprint for basically everything, from a 100-meter dash all the way to the mysteries of the cosmos. All right, so here's our game plan. First, we'll look at where this whole idea came from, the athletic field. Then, we'll dive into the actual formulas. After that, we'll try to unpack this mysterious ith point. You'll see what I mean. Then we'll see how it jumps from sports to spirituality. And finally, we'll check out its pretty huge goals for solving real-world problems. Let's get into it. Okay, Section 1, the athlete's universal blueprint. You know, when you think theory of everything, you probably don't think about sports. But for the Philfo model, that's exactly where it all begins. On the track, with an event designed to find the world's greatest all-around athlete. Yep, the Decathlon. We're talking 10 events that test every single aspect of human ability. And the author here proposes that this is so much more than just a competition. It's a perfect metaphor, a blueprint really, for the fundamental principles of energy, power, and force that he believes govern our entire universe. And this isn't just a modern idea, not at all. The model actually traces this logic all the way back to the ancient Greek pentathlon. It follows that thread through to the modern Olympics, arguing that these athletic events have been evolving along this predictable, almost mathematical line, a line that this theory claims it can finally explain. And you have to understand, this theory is also deeply, deeply personal. It was inspired by the author's own father, the late Professor Harnack Singh. He was a 3-time Indian decathlon champion, and as you can see from this quote, a celebrated figure. His life, his achievements, his whole philosophy, that's really the living, beating heart of this entire model. All right, now let's get to the real core of the model. How do you take something like an athletic event and turn it into universal math? Well, the whole theory is built on just 3 key equations. Let's break them down. Okay, equation number 1. This one is for simple straight line stuff, like a 100-meter dash. It's written as E equals O plus A. So think of it like this. O is the origin, or the start. A is the arrival, or the end, and E is the event itself. It's basically just saying an event is the journey from its starting point to its finishing point. Simple enough, right? Now, the second equation is a little different. This one is for things that fly through the air, like a shot put or a discus. The formula here is E of A equals A plus IA. Now, did you notice? The O for origin is gone. The theory says this is because the action itself, A, is creating its own event, its own arc. It's all about that self-contained arcing motion. And finally, equation 3. This is where it gets really interesting, because it basically just combines the first 2. This is for super complex events, like the pole vault. You can literally see the O+i part from our straight line run, right? That's the run-up. But then nested right in the middle, you've got a version of that second projectile formula, and that represents the vault itself. It's a synthesis, a mashup of both linear and arcing motion into one equation. Okay, so we've seen these 3 equations, but you've probably been wondering, what's up with that little I that's right in the middle of all of them? Well, the model calls that the ith point, and honestly, it might be the most important and definitely the most mysterious part of this entire theory. So what exactly is it? Well, the nth point is described as that critical, pivotal moment in any action. Think about it. It's the very peak of a high jump. It's the exact instant an arrow leaves the bowstring. It's that turning point where all the potential energy becomes kinetic energy. It's the central hub where everything transforms. And here's how the model sees that flow of action. First, you have energy and force building up, moving towards the center. Then, bam! At the ith point, power is expressed at its absolute peak. And after that, energy and force move away from the center, resolving the action towards its end. The theory is that this pattern, build-up, release, resolution, is absolutely universal. But hold on, because the theory takes a massive leap right here. It proposes that this ith point isn't just about physics and motion. No, it claims it's the actual source of language itself. It even links the concept directly to the vowel sounds of the EK alphabet. I mean, that's a huge jump. Okay, to make this a little more concrete, a little more understandable. The model uses a really simple analogy. Breathing. The inhale, that's the start. The exhale, that's the end. And what about that tiny, crucial, silent pause right in between the two? Yep, that's the ith point. All right, so we've gone from sports to physics to language. Now let's see how this whole framework expands into the realm of spirituality. This is really where the model tries to become a truly all-encompassing theory of, well, everything. And the paper makes another gigantic leap here by directly mapping its three equations onto very specific mystical concepts. It's claiming that the simple linear equation corresponds to the chakra system's biovortex. The projectile equation, that's linked to the Sephiroths from Kabbalah, and the complex combined equation is mapped to the Dasam Dwar, which is about the 10 senses in Sikh philosophy. It's a direct one-to-one mapping, according to the author. And it doesn't stop there. The paper goes even further, proposing a kind of mathematical order to religious practice itself. I mean, look at this. It lays out a system where different forms of prayer and recitation are organized into a numerical hierarchy, from 1 to 1 crore. It's suggesting there's a quantifiable, logical structure to devotion. That's a pretty wild idea. So for our last section, let's see where the rubber meets the road. How does the model plan to apply all these pretty abstract ideas? Because it's not just presented as a theory. The paper frames it as a practical tool, a tool for solving some of the world's biggest, most pressing problems. And believe me, the list of proposed applications is, well, it's vast. The paper suggests this model could be used for everything from city flood management to creating a whole new science of nutrition. It even proposes creating a universal language for the deaf and blind based on breathing patterns, new therapies for autism, and paralysis recovery. I mean, it's presented as a foundational framework you could use to design almost any product or system. And just to ground all of these huge, world-changing claims, the author brings it all back home to a very practical, very personal example. Apparently, his father, Professor Harnaik Singh, used these exact same principles of energy and flow to figure out the most efficient way to wash their family's dairy farm. It's a small-scale, real-world demonstration of what the author sees as a universal concept. So, in the end, what do we make of the Philfo model? It's this incredible, sweeping vision that tries to connect the simple motion of an athlete to the grand structure of the cosmos. And it really just leaves us with a fascinating question to ponder, doesn't it? Is this a genuine blueprint for how the universe works? Or is it a beautiful, powerful, and deeply personal metaphor for finding patterns and connection in a really complex world? What do you think?